Live every day as if it is your last, because one of these days will be. Jeremy Schwartz. I'm not going to stand here today and convince you not to do drugs, nor am I going to convince you to stay in school or to pursue a degree, not even to stop watching TikToks until 3 in the morning on a weekday. But rather a more general subject I think many of us could think about more, and that is life. Life and everything we have, everything we are given, should not be taken for granted. It's such an obvious statement, I know, but I think many of us still need to acknowledge that fact. Have you ever lost something or someone and regretted taking that thing, him or her, for granted? On September 27, 2018, I experienced the agony of losing someone who I cared about deeply, and it was only after they were gone that I realized I had taken them for granted for too long. I wish I knew the proper words to describe my grandmother, but that was just the thing about her. She was so indescribable. She carried a halo over her head everywhere she went, and her eyes just glistened even during her last moments on this earth. She was everything to me, from my number one supporter to even my personal therapist at times. Even my earliest memories revolve around her. I remember one recurring conversation we had together was her telling me not to take my life and the people around me for granted because life is so short. Ironic, I know. Today I will be sharing with you some of the most valuable insights she gave me by assessing 3 key points. First, we will take a step back and reflect on just how much we take for granted on a daily basis. Then we will go over what our subconscious does when taking things for granted and why we find it so easy to do so. And finally, we will go over some tips and tricks as to how we can stop ourselves from doing it so often. So before we start, I want you to do me a favor. Close your eyes and think about your daily schedule. What do you do when you first wake up? What do you eat for breakfast? Who do you cross paths with in the morning? What are you wearing and where are you going? Now, open your eyes and think about just how much of this we take for granted. Before COVID-19 struck, we woke up and we were free to go to school and free to go to work. We were free to go out with friends and to take a trip every once in a while. But most of us never took the time to think about just how much we had that only in a couple of months would be taken from us so quickly. We dreaded going to school and having to get up from bed, but the moment we were taken from our freedoms, all we wanted was for life to go back to normal. This is best explained by me, who is a student. All I wanted was a break. All I wanted was for school to be done. I just needed a time for myself, but I would do just about anything to be delivering this speech to you face to face instead of through a camera. We should be thankful for having the opportunity to go to school for an education or going to work for an income. If we have a roof over the top of our head, food to eat, and clothes to wear, we should consider ourselves extremely lucky. There are so many people around the world who lack the bare necessities that we fail to even consider. As a matter of fact, according to the Food Aid Foundation, approximately 793 million people around the world are starving right now, calling for about 11% of the population. Instead of selfishly wanting more for our own benefit and complaining about stuff that we have, for once we should think about other people in the world who do not have what we do and start appreciating what we do have, regardless of how little or how much that may mean to us. So secondly, why does our brain take things for granted so easily? The phenomenon of taking things for granted has surprisingly received little to no attention by psychologists or theorists throughout the decades. However, Thomas Kelly, a philosopher at Princeton University, speaks up about a person's subconscious justifying taking things for granted. He theorizes that one should only take for granted what one knows to be true. Now, what does this mean? Imagine you are in a small group and a colleague speaks Spanish the entirety of the time. It is evident from the way he is speaking Spanish that he is assuming or taking for granted that everyone in his group will understand him, but this is false. If you were to tell your colleague that you in fact do not understand Spanish, he would act surprised and tell you that he had no idea. Surely the colleague was ignorant of the fact that everyone spoke Spanish in his group, but it seems that because he didn't know that everyone spoke Spanish, he shouldn't have assumed that they did. This falls into Kelly's thesis of knowledge, or that one should not take for granted what one does not know to be true. Furthermore, a study conducted by Harman and Sherman explains that one's knowledge might rest on assumptions that are not themselves known, but rather justifiably taken for granted. For example, think about where your car is right now. Is it in your garage, parked in your driveway maybe? Well, this depends on your assuming that your car has not just been stolen, something that you do not know, but rather justifiably take for granted. Additionally, you might have planned a trip to Paris over summer break, but you took for granted that COVID would not have us quarantining for the next 6 months. Our brains are hardwired to believe what we know to be true. However, many times it can result in us forgetting that there's a chance that what we know to be true may not be true at all. Now, you might be thinking, how can I stop myself from taking things for granted so often if our mind is subconsciously doing it? We get so caught up in our own lives that we forget that there's more to life than just that. This is best described by a social experiment written by Gene Weingarten of the Washington Post, where a renowned violinist sat at a metro station in Washington, D.C. during rush hour. Though it was expected that thousands of people would recognize him as one of the best musicians in the world, only about 20 people tipped him, and a mere 6 people stayed to listen for a while. He made only $32 and received absolutely no recognition for being one of the most well-known artists in the world, despite having a sold-out show whose seats averaged out for about $100 each 2 days prior to that. The takeaway from this experiment is if people do not have a moment to stop and listen to one of the best musicians in the world, how many other things could we be missing? My grandma's advice to me was to live in the moment. While yes, we should be concerned with our lives and our problems, at the end of the day, we should all take a step back and truly enjoy every moment, both good and bad. Not only this, but we should be grateful for what and who we have in our lives. Wake up every morning knowing that you will make the best out of every situation and ready to make lifelong memories daily. Now, by showing you just how much we take for granted on a daily basis, why our brain takes things for granted subconsciously, and stating some ways in which you can stop yourself from doing it so frequently, I hope you can learn from my mistakes and enjoy your life to the fullest. After you finish what you are currently doing, I challenge you to text or call someone you think you have taken for granted over the last couple of weeks. Tell them you love them and hug them if you can. Go outside and enjoy the blue sky, the fall air, the sun, and everything around you. I challenge you to be appreciative of your health, time, energy, and even yourself. Treat yourself to rest and don't forget to enjoy life to the fullest. Thank you.